as we go into 2026, as we go into a really new future, a new reality, that there are two groups going into this reality. And there's one group that's going to come out of it. And I mean that in both a metaphorical sense and also in a real practical sense. Um, uh, and we can look at the groups will have nothing to do with the way we normally divide human beings up into nations or races or income groups or any of that stuff. It's going to be those who are fearful and those who are awakening. If you're fearful, you've got a path, and that path is not going to be leading up for you. If you are awakened or awakening, we've got some real challenges ahead, but we will answer those challenges with forethought, with open hearts, with ways of looking at the world that are not um, uh, my tendency is to say not normal, but we will be the new normal, um, and not based on any of the institutions that have gone before. What I want to do is introduce you to some of the um, metaphors that we have been looking at, that within Common Way have been looking at in terms of how we see our future. Um, we are not bogged down in fear. We're not bogged down in um, despair for the path that our society seems to have taken, because that path is absolutely necessary. And we'll talk about that in about 10 minutes, maybe five. And when we talk about it, we get a sense of how profound the change is of where we go in our society, what we look for and what we look forward to in our society. So let me share some of these uh, ideas with you. Uh, and then you can see what this series is all about. So I've got one, two, three, four, maybe five different um, operational metaphors. And the first one is, as we've talked about, and many people have talked about, is this movement from the caterpillar to the butterfly. There's a lot of metamorphosis that happens in nature. That's one realm of metamorphosis. But because it's so profound, we talk about it a lot. Um, Caterpillar goes into it attaches its butt to a twig, peels off its own skin, which has got to hurt, spins a cocoon, spins a chrysalis, and inside of there's a profound change, and then out pops the butterfly. Um, so we see our current society as the caterpillar, and we've acted like a caterpillar on the planet. We've been eating the planet pretty steadily. Um, we have a glorious future ahead of us, but the steps in the middle, I don't want us to gloss over them because we're in the steps in the middle right now. Um, uh, that process, so that when the caterpillar spins the chrysalis, it then dissolves. All of its caterpillarness goes away. And inside the chrysalis, there's just a bunch of goo. And by goo, I mean these are not caterpillar cells. They're also not butterfly cells. It's just a goo. And it's unclear how they are even alive. Are they alive as caterpillars or are they alive as butterflies? As you know, a butterfly is not a caterpillar with wings. It is a completely different being. Um, and what is the process by which this caterpillar turns into a butterfly? What's the process by which it turns to goo? Um, Part of my metaphor is that there are agents, there are pathogens inside of the chrysalis that are busily disassembling the caterpillar and turning it into the bucket of goo that those of us who call ourselves imaginal cells can turn into the butterfly. And the um, pathogen, the dissolving force for the caterpillar, I call the transformational universal metamorphic pathogen. And in short, I call that Trump. Um, Now, this is in some ways a joke, but in other ways, this is very serious. That what Trump has been doing is dissolving the institutions that we relied on, dissolving the institutions that in some ways created the sometimes flawed, but the value structure of what it is we call being an American, and pandering to people's fears, fear of the other, fear of the future, fear of uh, things changing too rapidly. We're going to go back into the past. We're going to turn back into a caterpillar, and and everything is then going to be perfect and fine. And that won't happen. And the goo that comes out of that process is what we, those of us who consider themselves the imaginal cells, are going to turn into our equivalent of a butterfly. Now, there's one profound piece of this transformational puzzle that was given to me when I had a conversation with Daniel Schmachtenberger. And if you don't know who Daniel Schmachtenberger is, I would suggest you Google him and get a short video of his so that you can get into some of his longer stuff. He is a very profound thinker. And when we were talking, and I told him that, we're looking at this transformation from caterpillar to butterfly. He said, wait a minute. The nature of the transformation is a function of what this being turns into. Now, if the transformation is small, then the being will look a lot like what it looks like now. If the being is profound, if the transformation is necessarily profound, then the being will have a profound change. Now, the being of the caterpillar, its DNA has to get from my garden in Portland, Oregon, down to Michoacan, Mexico, where it overwinters and spawns a whole new series of caterpillars, of caterpillars and butterflies. Now, if you're going to get from Portland to Michoacan, Mexico, you better have wings. And that's why butterflies have wings to get that DNA from here to there. If if it's as lightweight a transformation as a child going from um, feeding on the breast to feeding on with soft food, then more solid food, etc., then its jaw will change so that it will then grow teeth and it will be able to eat solid food. Um, so the change that we are making as a society, as a human society, is profound. It's the most profound change that we can make. I wouldn't be surprised if we sprout wings. We will, when our transformation is done, there'll be no such thing as poverty or lack on our planet. There'll be no such thing as um, uh, conflict around differences. There'll be no such thing as hoarding resources from other beings who need them. And in order to get to that, we've got a lot of changing to do. So this is going to be a very complete and a very profound change. Um, let's move on, though, to another of our metaphors. I've talked a lot about, and I talk about it in my first big book, Creating a World That Works for All. I talk about the difference in consciousness between keepers, breakers, and menders. Keepers being um, the people whose consciousness is one with the earth. They've been one with the earth since we've had an earth, since we've had humans. And their connection to the earth goes back for centuries to thousands of years. They know how to live with the earth. They know how to live with each other, and they know how to live with all of the other beings on our planet. We call the keepers by other names. We call them indigenous people, or we call them native people. Um, we tend to ignore them. We have almost always ignored them when we weren't busy killing them. And we um, we had in the last 10,000 years or so, a blink of an eye in our Earth centered way of looking at the world. Um, we developed another kind of consciousness, and that we call those the breakers. The folks who break the pattern of how do you live with the earth? How do we live with each other? And how do we live with uh, all others, including those of us who extend into the future? This is me pausing so that I can reel myself in and not go another half an hour on that point. So we've got keepers, we've got breakers, and then we've got the menders. The menders are those of us who were raised as breakers. If you speak one of the main breaker languages, like the colonial languages, colonizer languages, then you think like a breaker. But we can change that whenever, however we want to. And I can change to being a mender, a person who recognizes the value structure of the keepers, that that's the way we should be living on our planet, and have made a commitment to get back to a relationship to the earth, get back to a relationship with each other, and get back to a relationship with all other living beings on our planet, and get back to a relationship with our planet as one part of the divine. Um, and so that's our job on the planet, to take our consciousness into another realm as we are looking at the twilight uh, of the breaker consciousness, of the consciousness that is has seen itself as being above all others, that we are that breakers are the civilization. And we have another civilization coming down the road, and I think it's going to be a lot more profound than what we've got right now. Okay, so that's that metaphor. Another one that we use, that I think it helps us understand what happens next, is that we're having a baby, and that baby we're having is a new civilization. And if you know anything about having a baby, you know that it is a messy and painful and, let's just say, intense process. If a woman doesn't know that she's pregnant, when she's having a baby, she thinks she's dying. So there's this correlation between the birthing process and the death process. And so we should be focusing not on all the things that are coming apart. We should be focusing on what happens when this wonderful baby is born. Um, the way many of us act in our present society, we are spending all of our time looking at the afterbirth, looking at the placenta, looking at um, all of the painful things and all the yucky things that have happened, as opposed to saying, okay, where's the baby? And what's the baby look like? And how do we get from where we are to where we need to be in terms of dealing with the baby? One more, maybe two more metaphors here, and we'll move on to another subject here. Um, and that is something that I've been talking about a great deal over the last several. I've been talking about this transformation for the last roughly 4 decades. Okay, so I've been working on this for a while, and it's now here. But I've been looking at this particular part of the transformation for the past 3 to 5 years. And this is going from solons to holons, from us thinking about ourselves as individual beings and us thinking about ourselves as a colony of beings, and maybe multiple colonies of beings. That when I think about, and all of our teaching as a breaker is for you to think this way, that when I think of myself, I think of me being separated from every other being on the planet. That I am here, I am here. I'm pointing to my head because we tend to see ourselves as being in our heads. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. And that stuck around for such a long time because that's how we think of ourselves. I think of myself as an individual. Everything that happens to me happens to this body. Um, After I die, I either disappear or there's some process that happens outside of time and space, but it doesn't pertain to me in this body anymore. And that's one way of seeing the world. That way of seeing the world has gotten us into the mess that we're in right now. There's another way of seeing the world, and that is that we form a colony. We form a connection and a collection of beings, of, and that we have a role to play, not just in terms of what I'm doing with this life right now. We have a role to play um, with all other human beings on the planet and all other living beings on the planet, that we can share a consciousness, that we can share a consciousness across all human beings, and we can share a consciousness across all living beings, that we can actually share the consciousness that we've got. We can create um, this shared consciousness. We have experiences with the shared consciousness across separating lines. And we can create a colony, a connection, a collection of um, beings all pointing in the same direction. Share one story with you, and then I'll be moving on to seeing something else, sharing something else. And this is something that happened a few years ago. I was watching a program on ants, and I've always studied ants when I have the opportunity. I always think that there's more to them than what meets the eye. And what the program said was three things that I didn't know that I think points to us and what our interests are as we move forward on our planet. Um, and the three things are, number one, um, ants were around before dinosaurs. And I knew they were old. I didn't know they were that old. Number two, um, ants were on the planet as individuals, as solons, before they became colony beings. So if you look at the fossil record, you'll see dinosaur footprints, you see a whole bunch of beings, insects, etc. And you'll see a few ants running around here, a few ants running around there, but you won't see colonies of ants, groups of ants. The third thing is Depending on how you measure things, ants are the most successful beings on the planet. They went from being a few over here and a few over there to being the largest number of beings on the planet. That there are 35 pounds of ants for every pound of human. And so you've got 35 pounds plus how much you weigh of ants with your name on it. And um and they are successful, they are everywhere. They have very limited disputes among themselves, among other ants. The only time that ants are in dispute with each other is when humans push two colonies of ants too close together. And they then have to figure out where the line is. And they are very um, serious about the maintenance of their borders. But as long as you're not pushing them together, they coexist with each other and even help each other. Ants have been on the planet longer than dinosaurs and have been in the fossil record for that long, but they haven't been consequential because they were living as individual units. There were no ant colonies. So a few ants over here and a few ants over there, but they did not become colony creatures until later. So number three, and the most significant part, is that they did become colony beings. And when they became colony beings, they became arguably the most successful beings on the planet. How successful? Um, there's an estimate that there are approximately 20 quadrillion ants on the planet. No one's gone out and counted them. That's probably an undercount. Um, 20 quadrillion is 20 million billion. That's an awful lot of ants. Another way of looking at it is there are 35 pounds of ants for every pound of human on the planet. So take your weight, multiply it by 35, and that's your quantity of ants on the planet right now. Hopefully they won't come knocking on your door. Um, they became successful when they became colony beings. That being a colony being means that they can perceive the whole in ways that we cannot. Um, we don't know how ants work. You can study individual ants all you want to, and you will not see the holonic principle of how they work. Um, they all act for the benefit of the whole, and therefore the wealth of the colony belongs to all. It doesn't belong to a few little investor ants over here and everybody else gets paid dirt. They also will act for the benefit of the whole, even at the risk of their own lives. Now, those tendencies, the tendency to act for the whole and to act as the whole, are deeply rooted inside of all beings and deeply rooted inside of ourselves. What we have to do is start to activate that. And it's activating now. It's starting to happen right now. And we are part of that activation. It's our future. We know how to do this. If you ever see how human beings act in a natural catastrophe, in an earthquake or some other emergency, we come together with no thought for ourselves, but our thought is for the whole, and we will act and act in amazing ways. And that is our destiny, and that's what we should be about. How do we take care of each other and take care of our planet for the common good? How do we do this in light of our history of us spending almost all of our time and all of our resources in separating from each other? That is the net product of humanity on this planet. Um, that we spend 70% of our human resources in separating and killing each other. That does not sound like a civilized society to me. We are the ones that will bring about a civilized society. That's our job. That's the job of Commonwealth. That's my job. It's your job listening to this, even if you haven't recognized that yet or not. Um, and we in the very near future, like 2026, 2027, 2028, maybe even getting up to 2030, um, we are going to get to recognize that our job is to act like we are civilized, to bring the foundation of civilization to to us and to our planet. There are many, many people, I'd say maybe even the majority of people on our planet right now, who recognize something is fundamentally wrong. There are many, many people, maybe even the majority of people, who are looking for a new way to be, a new way to go. But beyond thinking about it, wishing for it, and hoping for the best, there's another action, and the other action is us being the leaders of a new society, of not leadership in the old way of I'm going to get an army together and storm the castle, or lead um, demonstrations on Washington, D.C. that just affirms the power of Washington, D.C. That we are going to be doing leadership in a different way and helping people see that there is a clear path forward. Um, that we will be working with the forces of societal change. We are not clinging to the status quo. At some point in time, you have to let go of the shore if you are actually going to make um, motion into your future. That we are establishing ways to talk about our civilizational transformation. We are working with on ourselves, and we're working with others to birth something new. Cooperation between all human beings. And not stopping there. Cooperation within and among all living beings to end this nightmarish split between this person and that person. And finally, for us to learn with each other and to learn um, uh, with the world how to become unflappable, how to become unfreakable, how to have as Larry Dossey talks about, a high boggle threshold, that it takes an awful lot to boggle your mind. Um, we can help each other with this, but we can't do that unless we know that this is something that's necessary, that this is something that's possible. Let's start talking about this January series. Um, I've got 6 dates selected, starting, well, actually having 2 starts. Our next week, on December the 30th, all these are on Tuesdays. all these are 6 p.m. Pacific time, and you have to do the calculation for what time it is for you. All of these will be done by Zoom. I'm tr also trying to create something that will be live here in Portland for those who wish to be live here in Portland, but still working out the logistics of that. Uh, and that will depend a lot on how many people are signing up for it, and that will depend an awful lot on how many people um, are here in Portland that want to do it. Um, so the 30th of December, a week from now, we'll be going through an overview of the series, not going through what we just did, but really looking at each one of the steps and how that step is going to be executed. We may just change the order of things a little bit. I'm looking and seeing that I know the beginning and I know the end, but the ones that are the steps are in the middle, I'm going to have to feel my way through a bit. The second step, which is going to be on the 6th of January, is on deep spirituality. Many people have been talking about being spiritual people, but almost paradoxically, many people talk about not being religious anymore. That we have teased away the concept of spirituality and religion. Now, I was about to say I have nothing against religion, considering the things that almost every religion has done in the name of God to oppress um, each other and oppress life on our planet. I guess I do have something against religion. Um, but I think that it is possible to live a decent life as a religious person. But my focus is on the deep spirituality, and that deep spirituality is something that I am committed to, and that takes me out of my rigid framework, even the rigid framework of being a human being, of learning how to become something larger than a human being. Then on the 13th, we go into deep identity or life beyond the ego. Some of you have done my workshops either within another organization or at your workplace. You've done workshops on deep identity and deep conflict. And we will go into that, but we're going to take that even further to look at our identity as it relates to where we are on the planet right now. That moving forward, we will be talking about America and Americans. But the way we've been talking about that, we'll be talking about that in the future is not how we've been talking about it in the past. And we'll be looking at our allegiance across borders, beyond borders, recognizing that all the borders are in our head and in our hearts, and we can move through those as we wish. Then on the 20th of January, we'll be talking about deep culture, culture beyond our separations, that our cultures can be very vibrant and alive and focused, but we also have used culture in the past as ways of suppressing others, oppressing others, um, not allowing beings to exist in their deepest, fullest uh, perspective, and blaming it on God or blaming it on the prophets or blaming it on somebody else that told me to do something different. And we'll learn what a deep culture looks like when we are deeply supporting each other and what that deep culture, um, how deep culture can help to cure some of these separations that we've got. On the 27th, we've got deep relationships. That means moving beyond lack and moving beyond greed, having a relationship with each other where we're all supporting all others and having a relationship with each other where we are not um, having a relationship with each other where we're not uh, keeping our um, energy away from each other, but making sure that we are all empowered, we all have enough, and none of us is burdened by the challenges of having too much. Um, that you're burdened by having too little and too much, and both of those burdens can even themselves out. Then the last scheduled gathering is on the 3rd of February, and this is on deep governance. And deep governance means getting beyond what we call politics. Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst possible governing system, except for all the other ones. So we need a new one because that story won't work anymore. Yes, it is. We need to have a governing system that can't be bought. And as we know, if this is the highest form of democracy, it is bought, paid for, tied up with a bow, and we need to let that one go and create a governance structure based on the fact that we are one. And once we get there, we'll be able to see things in a different way. There is the possibility of a seventh uh, program, a seventh episode in the series, and that would be just tying it all together. So I want to talk to you about what the January series is going to cost. First of all, and as usual, no one will be turned away from the event because of their inability to pay. Number two, the fees that I'm going to be quoting to you are suggestions only. This is a love offering. I don't want to enforce anything. I don't, we have been working pretty well in the last several months with having our events at a love offering basis and pretty much covering the cost of the events, the cost of everything, including the recording and editing and research, etc., covered through the event. Um, so again, treat this as a love offering. People have asked me, well, yes, it's a love offering, but around what range are we thinking about? Is it, $2, $20, $200? What would cover the expenses? So that's why I'm giving you some numbers to think about. Um, uh, and the numbers are, if you are going to be taking all six, now I mentioned that maybe seven events, but we're only talking about covering six events. The full series would be $20 per event or $120 altogether. That's if you sign up by the 6th of January. If you sign up before the 30th of December, that goes down to $15 per session for a total of $90. If you want to sign up after the 6th, that's going to run you $25 per session or $125. So this is just to encourage you to do this as quickly as possible so that we know what numbers we can count on and to get you involved in this as soon as possible. After that first session, that's on the 30th, if you believe that this is not for you, send me a note and say, Sharif, this is not for me, and I give you all your money back. I would say no questions asked. However, I'll give you your money back without asking you any questions about that. But I do have some questions on how did this not work for you? Because I'd like to make it work, make sure that it works for others. So full refund that you get without any questions, but then I'm going to have some questions about how we can make this better. Creation of a series book, a book on civilizational change. And that will be the basis of the book will be everything that we're doing in these sessions. And that book will be available to you pre-order for free. If you've signed up for the sessions, then yeah, you get the book. Thank you for participating here. Thank you for listening, first of all. Um, Thank you for giving us a thumbs up, giving us the hit the subscribe button, and also make a comment. I hate saying all that stuff because that's what everybody doing a YouTube video says. But I want to say that because that's how other people find out about this work. The more you give thumbs up on this, the more you hit the subscribe button, and and when you make comments, YouTube puts this higher up on its list of videos to promote to others. So if this doing that doesn't cost you a thing, but it also it helps us move this forward and helps us spread the word. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for considering signing up for the series. Your participation, even though it may be on a delayed basis, if you are doing this, doing it by a video, if you're not in the time zone, um, it will help all of us to see that there are a lot of people who are interested in this, and there are a lot of people who want to move forward on this. If you have any questions, you can do one of two different things. You can ask the question right here on the comment section on the video. If, though, your question is more personal, you can send it to mail@commonway.org, and I will get back to you. Once again, thank you, and I look forward to your participation. Thanks a lot. May all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy.